Okay, so we should be live. Hi guys. So good afternoon, everyone. You're very welcome to a National Museums at Home event. Today we're coming live from the National Museum of Art and Country Life, and I'm delighted to welcome Elaine O'Riordan from NUIG, and I have with me also Pat Broderick from Ennisross Woodcrafts. And today we're going to be talking about a subject close to my heart, and I think just about everyone's wants to have a look at them, the hedgehog. And we're going to be touching particularly on why we need to help hedgehogs at this time of year in particular. So I'm going to start with Elaine. Hi, Elaine.
Hi there.
How are you?
All good.
So do you want to quickly introduce yourself and tell people what it is you do?
Okay, well, my name is Elaine O'Riordan, as you said, and I work in zoology in the School of Natural Science in NUIG. And I just last year started a research project on hedgehogs in Ireland. So we don't know a lot about what kind of numbers and stuff we have of hedgehogs in Ireland. So I would like to do a bit of research into that and see kind of what kind of numbers we have and where they're distributed and that kind of thing.
Okay. So we can start, I think, by just having a little chat about hedgehogs in general this time of year. So I suppose my first question would be, what are hedgehogs doing around this time of year?
Well, around this time of year, they're kind of beginning to wake up, or they're thinking about waking up. So they emerge from hibernation kind of around March, April.
Okay. And is it a particularly tough time of year for them?
Well, they're hungry. Most of them have been asleep for most of the winter. Now, like they do true hibernate, but sometimes they will wake up, particularly if it's very mild or if they know there's a source of food nearby, they will wake up and wander about during the winter. But in general, they would have used up all the reserves that they had built up now during their hibernation. So their number one priority really at this time of the year is to get some food in.
Okay, and we're going to come back to that in a few minutes with Pat as well. We're going to have a little chat about what we can do. And saying that, why do they need our help at this time of year? Why do we need to help them out?
Well, I suppose the way things have been going, maybe that sometimes the countryside, we've changed the way we use the countryside. It's maybe not providing all of the resources that the hedgehogs would need. So, any little boost or any little help that we can give the hedgehogs is great. So if you do have hedgehogs, in visiting your garden, you can give them a little extra boost by providing them a little bit of food, and that will supplement then their natural diet.
Okay. Speaking of which, what is a hedgehog's natural diet?
Okay. Well, they're insectivores, so that means they eat insects, all kinds of little invertebrates. They particularly like, millipedes and caterpillars and earwigs, and they'll also take worms and some slugs and snails. And they'll take little bits of whatever they find, they would take a frog, or they would take eggs, or a little bit of fruit or stuff like that as well.
Okay. When I was very young, we used to leave out bread and milk, which I believe is not the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think we all did that when we were younger.
Yeah. So what can we leave out for them as a food supplement? What would they like us to leave out? Okay,
well, the best thing would be definitely not bread and milk, because they can't digest that. They're insectivores and they're lactose intolerant. So the best thing would be some sort of meaty cat or dog food. If you can, so just like canned cat or dog food, or the wee pouches, or dried, the little dried cat biscuits are good as well, particularly if you're going to give them something like the little dry biscuits, give them something like kitten biscuits or something which are small, because the bigger ones can be hard for them to eat. So dry cat food or wet cat food is the best thing.
Excellent. Okay. Just to say to everyone who's watching, if you want to put a question in the chat, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, if you put question in brackets before it, It just makes it easier to pick them out in the chat. But I do see one here. Someone says, Anna says, I've never seen one. Is there any particular part of the country they are in?
No, they're widespread and common all over the country. The only places where you won't really see them is at very, high altitudes. If you're up the mountains, really, they don't live up in the mountains. They don't like very wet or boggy areas. So if you're kind of maybe around in the Midlands where there's lots and lots of bogs, you wouldn't see as many there. And around the kind of the bare rock and the burn, you wouldn't see too many of them either. But otherwise, they're found in every county. I've had records this year from every county in Ireland. Okay,
speaking of records, you're involved in a project at the moment surveying hedgehogs across the country.
Yes, I'm the laziest surveyor everywhere. I just ask everybody else to do the survey work for me. So we've been running the Hedgehog Survey now since last summer, and what we've been asking people to do is to submit if they see a hedgehog dead or alive, or if you have them coming into the garden, to submit the sighting via the Biodiversity Ireland website, and we have a hedgehog survey on there. So we've had a massive response to it. We had over 2,000 records of hedgehogs last year. It was one of the most recorded species. So it's been great to give us a picture of where people are seeing them, and what they're doing as well.
Okay, excellent. I see another couple of questions there. So what I'll do is I'll just do these couple of questions very quickly, and then we might have a chat with Pat about, because one of the questions leads nicely on to Pat. How can you encourage them into your garden? We might get to that in a second, but how can you help them out in estates with fenced-in gardens and lots of cats?
Okay, well, this just does lead in nicely. So the thing is that, well, generally the cats won't bother the hedgehogs, and they're certainly not going to hurt a hedgehog or harm it, and hedgehogs generally won't take any notice of them. But if the fence is all right, can kind of put a stop to their gallop, really, because they do need a good bit of roaming space. Hedgehogs, they can travel well over 1 kilometre at night, because there's not enough food in any one garden to keep a hedgehog going, so they need to move around between the gardens. So if you can make it possible for them to get between the gardens, that would be best. So that would mean putting in little openings or gaps in your walls or your fences, so that the hedgehogs can move around through the gardens. So that would be the best thing for them.
Okay. Another question here, and we'll move then to Pat. We have lots of foxes in our area in Dublin. Would they eat hedgehogs?
Generally, a fox wouldn't be able to take on a full-grown, healthy hedgehog, because what that old expression, the fox has many tricks, but the hedgehog has only one, and it's a good one. And that's because the hedgehog, the minute it feels threatened, it rolls into a ball. It's a really tight ball. They can keep that up for hours and hours and never get tired. And they have about 5,000 spines all over their body. So a fox is not usually able to open them up and to kill them or harm them. If you have a hedgehog that's maybe young, or maybe it's weak, or it's sick, then a fox would probably have a go all right. We do have some suggestions from maybe some of the rescue centres have been reporting that what they tend to find is that maybe sometimes if foxes and hedgehogs might be both feeding in the same area, if people are putting out food for foxes and hedgehogs, that sometimes there can be a bit of aggravation there, and the general injuries tend to be a missing foot or something, that the foxes would harm the hedgehogs that way. Okay.
I'm going to bring Pat in at this point. Hi, Pat. How are you?
How are you doing, Brendan?
Not too bad now, not too bad. Those of you who are familiar with our programming here at the Museum of Country Life might recognise Pat. You may have seen him in the flesh when that were possible at the museum here. He's a long-term friend of the museum, a great craftsman. And Pat, you, I believe, have a couple of hedgehogs living down the back of your garden.
We have actually, past couple of autumns now, we've had them coming up around the house, and last year we had a dog as well, we're training a guide dog, but there was bits of food and stuff left out as well when I bought the dog food and everything else. But every evening about 7 o'clock, you'd have them coming up around the house and everything else, around the yard, and then they can ramble out into the field at the back. It's open country in the back, So yeah, they were regular visitors. Yeah, it was great to have them around. Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons I asked Pat to help us out in this project. Pat is what you might call handy. He's the sort of man who turns hand to anything. And we asked him to have a go at making some different feeder boxes, because at this time of year, it's really important that we try and help feed up the hedgehogs, because they're coming out of hibernation, and provide a safe space to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to a video that Pat very kindly made for us. It's about 20 minutes long, so bear with us, folks. We're going to stop talking. I'm going to play the video, and when we come back, we'll take some more questions from the chat, and we'll see how we get on. So I'm just going to switch over. Hopefully this will work.
Now, what we have here is some examples of feed boxes for the hedgehogs and tunnels. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to make these. They're made out of something you have around the house. Just fruit boxes and stuff. This one was rustic, and over here we have a different one again. We have an old terracotta pot that was broken. What we're going to do now is we're going to go inside and we'll show you how to make these. Now, you've seen the finished feed boxes we have. Now, the idea of all this is to keep it nice and simple, something you might have around at home, reuse items that you can find around the place, and be kind of environmentally friendly to a certain extent, right? So the few items you might need to make these are a few tools you might have handy around the place, some form of a saw maybe, something like these, a hammer of some sort, maybe a garden secateurs if you had one handy, a pliers or a pincers, garden string, a couple of nails, small nails, old coat hangers. We'll show you how they're used in a minute. A bit of old garden hose. I have these as well. These are handy. These are left over from children's toys or camping, any of that kind of stuff. You can just stick them in the ground, put a bit of string over the feed box and secure it so the wind doesn't blow it away. And a little bit of plastic. We got just off a bit of wrapping or whatever, or you might have a refuse bag. I'm using sticks from pruning on the hedge for the feed box. If you haven't got these handy, or sallies or straight sticks or anything else, you might have a few bamboos or something like that lying around the place. You might have something like that, or you might come up with your own idea. And then the basic box itself is made up of old fruit boxes from the veg shop. They're throwing them away, they want to get rid of them. There's no use, but they're ideal, they're perfect. They're just plain timber, there's no treated wood or nothing in them, they're environmentally friendly, and if they're going to rot down, break down, they'll just go back into the ground perfectly again. So we'll start off the process, we'll give you a few of the rough measurements and everything else as well. Now, to start on the tunnel, it needs to be roughly around about 5 inches wide, or 120, 140, 130, 40 mil roughly, and about the same height. So it's comfortable for the hedgehog to get through. Now the idea, and I made it thin as well, around about 300 long. So it hopefully will deter any cats or anything else from kind of going in at the food that's inside of it. The first thing we do is roughly measure our sticks that we're going to use. They're roughly about 300 mil. They don't have to be all exactly. If they're jagged in and out, it makes them even more rustic looking, and all the better. Alright, so we cut those. Roughly like that. Alright, so we do a stack of those. Alright. See, I'm not being too particular about the length. The other thing I'm using as well is a bit of old garden hose. And again, to get about the 150, 130 mil wide curve, you need to cut this about 300 mil. So the scissors, whatever you have handy, just roughly measure that about 300 mil. You need two of these. Again, it doesn't have to be. And to help these in shape, to get you together, otherwise it'll flex out and everything else, I'd use old coat hangers. Just stretch it out like that. Squeeze it in the middle as tight as you can. Squeeze it in the end. You might have to just close the end down a bit. Now, and instead of cutting that off, straightened it out, and just bent it back up in itself, like that. You end up with something like that. You get a bit of your hose and you slide it in. Slide all the way through, hopefully. That end goes up in there, and then you just turn it, and you roughly shape it like that. That's your one. Alright? Now, to hold this in place, I've come across an old fruit box again, out of a supermarket. One end goes in there, the other end hopefully will go in here. Just tap that down tight. Now, the idea is pieces sticking out the end. They'll go into the ground and they'll help secure the tunnel in the ground. So that's one done. We'll do the next one. Alright. Yeah. Now, to start off the tunnel, now I have the two corals in the box just to hold it out of convenience. A piece of air board or something else, you could shove them into that to hold them as well. Alright, so our next job then is to attach our bits of timber to this. Now, the trick on this, attaching these, is to have a thick end that side, then maybe the next one over to thick end the next side, and rotate them back and forth that way roughly. So you get your string, you need to get out a fairly long piece that you can manage with, and have it doubled. It's easier if the string is lighter. Alright. And then halfway in the middle of the string, tie your first knot. Alright, and that one. Alright. Good knot. That's and you do the same then on the other one. Now this won't be enough string to take you all the way around, but you will get to add in more as you go around over the curve. Alright, so you bring it to midways in the string. It's a bit finicky at the start, but don't worry about that. It tightens up as it goes over and actually gets very strong on itself. So you get your first stick and put it on over the string. Alright, just judge it by eye as your best bit, and then you tie that. Oh, that's what I mean by finicky with the first one. Just give that a good knot, double knot it if you want, and then you do the same with the other side. Yeah, so that's the first one up. Now, next one then over. Now just make sure that one of the pieces of string comes through the loop, so you're tying it onto the curve all the time, like that. So pull it through, you tie it. Right, now this string, make sure it goes through the loop. That. Now we get our next one, and we go again and again. Make sure it goes through the loop. Tight like that. This one through the loop. Now you could use garden wire for holding this on as well, but I just think the string is nicer. It's easier to work with as well. So we keep building it up like that. You get your rustic look effect. You can just fit them in. And if you have someone to help you, even better still. Put the string in to the loop. Another one. We'll get one more in and we'll have to add in more string. I'll show you how that's done. Alright, so this is going in.
tie him off. And then tie him off as well. Now I'll just cut off these bits just to keep it nice and tidy. And then the same thing again, get another long piece, double it up because it gives it more security, like that. And then through the loop, bring back in, tie it on there, and you're ready to go again with the next one. And then the next one again. Yeah, move. I'm a big fella here. Alright, to the loop. And keep working all the way around till you get down to the box on the other side. So we keep working all the way around till we get down the other side. Now, we've worked our way around, gotten down the far side. All you need to do now is just out of the box, more like that. There you go. And it's solid enough. Alright, so that's it. Okay, and you can adjust it in or out a little bit if you want to. Press them in, the wire will take the shape. And then, just when you're ready, just push it into the ground. You have a nice little rustic tunnel. I don't think it'll be too many cats will be kind of venturing in through there. Alright, so our next process now is to show you how to make the actual feed box itself. Alright, so we can put that away to the side, over there. And like I say, we used just fruit boxes, just plain simple fruit boxes like these. Very little work. One box, you have to do nothing at all with. Alright, there's that. One other box, just for the ground, we need to take the base off it. Alright, so all we need to do with that, we have the snips. It's just the wire at the side. Get it in there. And it comes out like that. You just need to work your way around. So all that should come out together. Like that. Keep working your way around. Three of these boxes, because you'll need two long sides of a third box to join these two together. Just have these two to go. Last one's here. That's that. You need that like that. And you just put it down there. That goes away. We'll take out this bit of wire just to mind the fingers. Now we'll end up with that. So we need to join these together. Along with the board down that side, or like you've seen on the other one outside, we just put the sticks along the side here. We just nail them on with the small nails, just to create that rustic look. Now, there's no bottom on this because you want to be able to lift it on and off every now and again with your food tray inside. So that's why there's no bottom on an iron, right? And we'll show you a little trick then afterwards as well, a little thing that came up with the engineering as to how you might be able to find out if there's something inside in the box where actually within the box where I actually haven't to lift the lid off. Just a little thing. You might come up with other ideas yourself. We'll just show you that in a while. So we'll just continue on making this. So on the other box then, you need the side, these side pieces. Two of these side pieces I'll need. Same thing again.
Be careful of the eyes, be careful of the hands. Let's get the staples out. Let's go out underneath. Like that. Now we have our sides taken off, so we need to join the boxes together. So simply put it down, shove the boxes together. Again, if you have a little bit of help for this, any kind of a light nail, screws or whatever you have, just tack the two of them together. That's it. That's enough to hold them together. Well, I have that. See? Right. Our next job then is just to cut out a hole. Very simply, doesn't have to be exact either. Just a pencil, roughly outline the outline of your tunnel on one end of your feed house, like that. And then we can get out one of our saws or whatever you're handy. This stuff is very light, so it's a very easy cut. Very, very easy cut. Like that. Entrance. Yep, take off that last bit of wire there, so nothing gets caught in it. Right, that'll be our entrance. It'll sit down over the tunnel outside. Now, one last final thing is to just, it's not necessary, you don't have to cover it, but it just keeps any bit of moisture out of, from rain, out of the food bowl inside. So all you do is get a bit of plastic like that. To keep that in place, in very simple thing, keep it in place, base of one of the boxes that you've put up. And again, that just tacks in place with a nail. You get the hammer, just down into the corners, and it's enough thing to keep it in place. And just stops the wind from blowing up the four corners. Now, and then we get our scissors and we just cut it to size again, so we don't have too much around in the wind. Like that. Now, that's our house ready to go out into the garden, in position without the men. Now, one other thing we want to show you, a little idea we come up with, a kind of bit part of the engineering brief. We'll show you that in one of them now in a minute. Right? Now we've come up a little idea that you can look down the garden from the house. There's a little trick, a little mechanism that when the hedgehog enters in, that he will trip a little tripwire, and all we have here is a little bit of timber or whatever you have, a spring into this timber held down with a bit of hot glue, and very, very light cotton sewing thread goes through and just catches onto a little nail there. Now you have to imagine the tunnel will be here as well. All right, so we're taking away the tunnel just for video purposes. All right, so Along comes your hedgehog, hopefully. In he goes. All right, so he goes in, and just as his nose pushes off the bit of string, up comes your little flag. And you know, looking down from the house, once the flag is up, something has gone in and triggered that. So it's just a little bit of a thing, just the path engineering thing of it, just a bit of fun. You might have other ideas yourself, and try out something.
Okay, and we're back. Just bring Pat and Elaine back in with us here. So that was really good, and I like the way that you used as much recyclable material as possible there, Pat, in doing that. Had you any other ideas that you didn't get to put into the video that you created for us?
Yeah, we have some. Yeah, some other ideas here. People mightn't around the house. Hold on, we're a little bit of camera and technology. We have, the plastic boxes people have for storage in around the house. You might have broken one of these, or you pick them up fairly cheapish. You can cut a nice hole in these for the tunnel to go in as well. And the beauty of this is, of course, is you can actually see what's going on inside as compared to the timber one, and that as well. And you can just pin it down again with the same little pins. You just go down to the side of it. I think just clip over the side, get it on the camera, and just clip it into the ground to stop it from blowing over on you. And that's another thing for the tunnel then as well, is just a 5-litre water bottle. And we taped up the ends just to take any hard edges off it. And you can actually put two of these together, shove one into the other and tape them up as well. And this might work as well as an alternative tunnel to, if you haven't got the sticks or the bamboos, you might have plenty of these lying around the house. And just fit it into your new feeder, and away you go. It's just a different idea. And you might have a few different ideas in yourself as well, of course. But something that's handy, something that's kind of up around the house. What we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So just go looking at the chat here. We've had a couple of questions while the video is on, so I might just, we covered the one about the foxes, but there's another one here. We have a feeder which was visited most nights last year. We want to build a nest box. Any tips? You're kind of getting ahead of us there, Jennifer. We actually plan on doing a nesting box and a hibernation box video similar to this later in the year in November. They're actually planning on hibernating. But if you mean like a nesting box for over the summer, Elaine, Pat, any ideas?
I would say something similar enough sort of a setup even that what Pat had suggested there. Some sort of a box. It can even be, like the wooden box there. It should be waterproof. You should probably put some plastic or some roof felt or something on it to waterproof it. Ideally, a little tunnel that keeps the cats. The idea of the tunnels with the feeders and with stuff is it keeps cats and stuff out. They don't really like usually going into tunnels. And it should be in a quiet place, maybe at the back of the garden or under a hedge, that sort of a thing. You can buy some. There are some commercially available hedgehog boxes, but they're fairly straightforward. There's very good instructions online. There's a very good website called Hedgehog Street. If you go on there, you'll get loads of ideas and printable instructions.
Yeah, we have a few ideas for a heavier one for the winter as well. I'll probably give a bit more insulation as well for over the winter, and a bit more sturdier that it won't blow around or blow over in the wind as well. So we have a few ideas for that, hopefully in the autumn, all going well. Yeah.
Okay. Joe, to answer your question, you said that you forgot and you joined late. Don't worry about it. This will actually be on YouTube later. The full version is going to be up on YouTube, so you can tune in on that. Why do hedgehogs suffer so badly from fleas? I think that's the thing that most wild animals suffer from.
Yeah, and look at, I suppose, I don't know what I would say they're suffering. Usually, like the hedgehogs are known to have fleas, but I'll just point out that the fleas that are on hedgehogs, they're species specific. So they're hedgehog fleas, they only live on hedgehogs. So, yourself or your dog or whatever aren't going to get infested from the hedgehogs. But, usually they can tolerate, a having these fleas, but it's when if a hedgehog is sick, or if it's unwell, or it's underweight or something, then sometimes the fleas can kind of get out of control and get on top of it. But usually, like, they do carry fleas, and they just get on with it, and they've got good long little nails for scratching.
Yeah. Pat, question for you: will that setup only last for 1 year?
Possibly, but again, it's something that's totally free, and again, and like what will break down into the ground will go back in and help form possibly some, when the nest box or the feed box breaks down, it's going to form a shelter for slugs and snails, which is going to give food again to the hedgehog hopefully later on. And it's just, I mean, the veg shops are just mad to get rid of all those boxes and everything else. So I really plan to make another fresh one next year, and any smells, dirt, or anything else that's on it, you'll be getting rid of all that as well. So it'll be nice, clean, and fresh again for the following year.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. There's some really good suggestions in the chat. I see from I'm going to try and get this right, the Hogsprickle Wildlife Carers. They suggest that you put salt around the feeding bowl to stop slugs and snails from eating the cat food. Slugs and snails carry lungworm, which can infect, we'll just say hedgehogs, and might prove fatal. So that's an interesting thing. I didn't know that. So that's a good piece of advice for anybody who wants to go ahead. And we would ask people if they could or were interested in setting up their own hedgehog highways, maybe around their community or around their housing estate, or even when you guys get back to school, if you could do one around your school, just to give some freedom of movement to the hedgehogs, and it really helps them out. Another good piece of advice here from Nicola. She says, I use a heavy brick on top so cats can't knock it when they try to get at the food. That's a good idea. If you don't have, say, the camping pegs that Pat mentioned in the video, you could maybe put a brick on top. Here's a question. Will neighbors' cats try to get at a he is in the box? They frequently go through the garden each night. We did mention about cats not really being a threat to hedgehogs already, Elaine. Isn't that true?
Yeah. A cat really wouldn't be a threat to a hedgehog. You know, and I think they'd put one paw on a hedgehog and they won't get any closer. But most reports that people have told me is that they'll just kind of watch them and they won't generally go near them. And the hedgehogs won't take the slightest bit of notice of a cat.
Okay. Elizabeth asks, are hedgehogs solitary feeding animals, or will they go into the feeder in groups?
Okay, they are solitary animals in that they don't pair up as mates or live as family groups. Once the young are reared at 6 weeks, they leave the mother, but they will hang out together at feeding stations, and they will sometimes even share nest boxes and stuff like that. So you will often see more than one hedgehog coming together. It doesn't mean that they're a family or they're living together, but they often will hang out at feeders and stuff together. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent stuff. So unless anybody has any other questions, I'm just going to have another look through the chat. Oh, here's one. What about mice or rats?
I've been preparing for this because I get asked this all the time, because I know people are saying, like, you know, we want to feed our hedgehogs. And look, we're not saying that you have to feed hedgehogs either, okay? This is just an option if it's something that you want to do. I would say for starters, some suggestions that I have found from people who've been doing this much longer than me are, first of all, rats and mice, rats in particular anyway, they don't like open spaces quite as much as, you know, they don't like to wander too far from a hedge or the shed or wherever they're hiding. So you could put your hedgehog feeder in kind of a more open space in the middle of the garden or on the patio or something, and then the rats aren't likely to venture out across an open area to get it. The other options is that if you only put food out in the evening time, because hedgehogs are nocturnal, they only come out at night. So if you just put the food down just before dark, then it's not sitting out there all day kind of attracting anything else. So that is one option. So you can literally, even if you wanted to just put it down for an hour or two, hedgehogs are pretty smart and they will figure out the food comes out, and they'll generally appear then right 10 o'clock every night. That's when the hedgehogs show up. So you could, if you know you have hedgehogs and they come out for food, just put it down for an hour or so every night and then take it away again. That's an option. If you have, you know, if you do have a lot of rats, or, you know, like there's rats everywhere, you're never more than a few meters from a rat, that's just the way things are. You can try to make your garden kind of a little bit more rat proof. If you find tunnels and holes and stuff, block them up. Check your compost heap if you have a compost bin or something. I know there's a family of rats living in my compost bin anyway. So have a look and see how you might rat proof areas like that where they like to hang out. And then they, you know, so I would never say put down poison or anything like that. If you do find you have a rat problem, maybe feeding hedgehogs is not for you, you know. But if you find that you do have rats and you really feel you need to treat them, then I would say just don't use poison, because that can harm hedgehogs and other wildlife and pets as well. If you were really you wanted to get rid of them, I would be looking at something like these kind of covered snap traps or something like that, maybe, or live traps that you could catch them and remove them. It's up to yourself how you feel about that. But then the other options are then maybe just, rather than actually putting out cat food or something, make your garden a bit more friendly for natural food. So things like log piles of sticks and leaves and stuff like that, they'll attract beetles and insects and all sorts of stuff that not only the hedgehogs will love, but birds and other animals too. And things like a patch of nettles or nice wildflower areas, a hedge, you know, you can help the hedgehogs out in other ways without putting out cat food as well. So if you really don't want to deal with the having any other visitors in your garden, that might be an option for you.
Okay. Very good. So we have another couple of questions. It's actually another good point from the Hobsprickle guys again. They're saying when the box rots down, you will need to collect the staples from the boxes, as they could injure the hog's soft feet. That's a good point. David asks a question about slug tox poisoning. I'm not sure what you mean, David, but I'm guessing it's something around putting down poison for slugs, and is that bad for the hedgehogs? I would say that it is.
Yes, yeah, it is very bad for hedgehogs, and particularly the incidence of it seems to be going down from what I've read. But the people putting out slug pellets, it's very harmful for hedgehogs and birds and any other animal as well that would eat them. They're highly toxic and very poisonous to all wildlife. So I would say never, ever, ever use slug pellets in the garden.
Okay. So Karen has an interesting one. She said, have used bottles of warm water placed in sports socks for little visitors. They seem to like the heat. Is this okay to do? I just have this wonderful image of a hedgehog snuggled up to a big sports sock.
Snuggled up with a hot water bottle.
Yeah.
Isn't that lovely? Might have to get Beckle back to ask her that. Look, I can't see, it certainly wouldn't cause them any harm anyway. And one of the things that does happen that sometimes is hedgehogs do suffer from hypothermia, and they can kind of get stiff and slow down. So definitely, if you're finding a hedgehog and he's a bit slow and stuff like that, certainly warming them up is always a good starting point. Yeah.
Okay. Just a couple more, folks, and then we're going to finish up. Michael asks, how long do hedgehogs live for?
I think one of the oldest ones that there was a lady called Amy Haig did a study there a few years ago, and she looked at carcasses of animals, and I think the oldest animal that she found was 8 years old. But I think that is quite old for a hedgehog. From what I read, it's usually, you know, in the wild 2 to 3 years.
Okay. Nicola has a good suggestion. I've heard to deter rats, if you hang a type of flap that swings both ways on the ending box. Rats are supposed to hate these, but hedgehogs don't mind them at all. Oh, you meant feeding box. Yeah, so I don't know. That's worth a try anyway. I don't know if that would deter rats, but it's definitely worth a try. Another question from Jer. When do hedgehogs come out? So what time of the year they are? Not sure, Jer, if you meant what time of the year or what time of the day, but we can answer both questions, I guess.
Okay, time of the year wise, like you could see one at any time of the year, but generally between April and kind of October, they're at their most active. And then they're most active at night after dark. So anytime from sort of dusk onwards. So from right throughout the dark hours of the night, that's when they're out and about and feeding. They are proper nocturnal animals. If you see a hedgehog out during the day, that can often mean that hedgehog maybe isn't well. Except if it's looking very busy and it's working, then it possibly is a female, because they sometimes will come out during the day if they're gathering nesting materials and stuff like that. But if you see a hedgehog out during the day, and particularly if it's looking slow or sluggish, it's not moving very much, then that hedgehog might need some help, and it would be advisable to ring a local rescue, a wildlife rescue, or your vet or the ISPCA, and get some advice about who you can talk to then.
Okay. One last question. If you pick up a hog, do you need to wear gloves?
Yes. Generally, well, yeah, like everybody, and I'm always surprised myself every time I touch one, how sharp they are. They are really, really, really sharp. Like, yeah, so if you do need to pick one up, I would suggest maybe using a towel folded several times, or if you have a pair of those kind of suede gloves, you know, those welding gloves or something, or even gardening gloves, any sort of a tough gloves would be, yeah, definitely do wear gloves if you have to. Like, you will be able to pick one up without them, but they are very sharp. Yeah.
Okay. Folks, thanks very much. Just to say, you can help Elaine out by, if you do spot a hedgehog, you can go along to the Hedgehog Survey. That's www.irishhedgehogsurvey.com. And using that website, you can list where you've seen your hedgehog. If anybody would like to have a go at making something similar to what Pat has demonstrated, please feel free to post images to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And if you want to, you can use the hashtag Museum at Home. That way we'll be able to find them. Don't forget to check us out on Twitter and Facebook. And the obligatory like and subscribe. If you like the content and you'd like to see more, please do like and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the notification bell. That'll keep you in touch. And if you want to see more events like this, check out www.museum.ie. All of our upcoming events are listed on our website. Folks, thank you very much, and we'll see you again in the next one.